Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Today I would like to talk about a very important topic, something that is concerning to all of us, and something that can be a very big sin if we're not careful. I want to talk about the scholars of Islam very briefly because it's a huge topic. I want to start by saying that by definition the scholars of Islam are great people, as they are the inheritors of the Prophets والسلام, and inherit from our Prophet Muhammad وسلم, our religion. There are many ayat of the Quran and ahadith of the Prophet والسلام, showing us the exalted position of the scholars of Islam. As an example, I will give some of them. Allah said, "Are those who know equal to those who know not?" Which means no, not equal. He also said, "Allah shall raise those of you who have believed and those who were given knowledge in degrees," meaning in this world and in the hereafter. Also, Allah said, "Only the scholars truly fear Allah." And in some of the ahadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Indeed, the scholars are the inheritors of prophets. The prophets do not bequeath, meaning leave behind, dinars nor dirhams. They only bequeath knowledge. So whoever takes it has indeed received a huge share of that inheritance or bequest." Also, the Prophet ﷺ said, "The superiority of a scholar over a worshipper is like the superiority of myself over the lowest amongst you." In another hadith, like the superiority of the full moon over other heavenly bodies. For those reasons, the importance of Islamic true scholars is hard to overstate. But this may not be known to many people, or we can even say that many people do not show the respect that we must have for these great scholars. Such people only consider someone knowledgeable in Islam if they say what pleases them, their desires and ideas, however alien they may be to our religion, regardless of what Allah said in the Quran or the Prophet ﷺ in the Sunnah, since such people do not wish to educate themselves according to what Allah wants and rectify their actions, trying to be far away from sins. Such people are very dangerous to all of us, but especially for those who are ignorant and those who only follow their desires and opinions like themselves. That is why when the ulama say that shirk, which is polytheism or idolatry, is haram in all of its manifestations, such people say, "Do you really think these are ulama, scholars? We have our own sheikhs." Or when the ulama say it is not allowed to do takfir of Muslims, declaring them to be non-Muslims without right, they say they are the Murji'ah. Murji'ah are one of the misguided sects. And when the ulama say Allah has described himself in the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ in the Sunnah, that he has a face befitting his majesty and not like the faces of his creation, that he has two hands, a shin, a leg, a foot, eyes, again all this befitting his greatness and not resembling his creation, that he is above the throne, above all of his creation, not everywhere, that he descends to the lowest heaven in the last third of the night, at the same time continuing being above his creation at all times, that he will come to judge between his slaves on the day of judgment, and other such attributes of Allah that they do not like, even though all of the Salaf, including the four Imams, believed in them without any difference of opinion. Such people say these are disbelievers, they are fools. They say Allah is like his creation, even though they do not say like that. Almost the same is said about the scholars by those who love chaos, takfir, rebelling against the rulers, They love revolutions and civil unrest, and they even call to war under the pretense of holy war. They call to civil war. And I do not mean Lenin and the Bolsheviks. They say these are the scholars of the rulers. They've sold themselves out to them. And when the scholars say that riba, which is interest, usury, and fraud, zina, which is sexual relations outside of wedlock, alcohol, music, dancing, free mixing of men and women, then those who love these things and do not want to leave them say, what kind of Islam is this? Everything is haram? What kind of scholars are these? They are not at all scholars. Similar things are said by those who love to backbite others, especially scholars of the Sunnah and students of Islamic knowledge, and preachers who do not think or say like them, and to abuse them when scholars tell them that it is not allowed and in fact it is a big sin. They do not like it and they pretend that such people are not scholars. These are some of the examples, dear friends, of examples are huge in number. I cannot say all of them, but I've mentioned some which I believe are very destructive to us. So what can we do then in this case? It's very simple. We must know the scholars of Tawheed, monotheism, and Sunnah, the path of the Prophet ﷺ, and their students. And for this we have to have some knowledge. And we must love them for Allah, and also the students who for one reason or another could not or cannot be with those ulama in person, but they are with them in their knowledge, understanding, practice and preaching. We must love them, know their rights upon us, help them with what we can, defend them from attacks and disrespect, know their high status in Islam and with Allah. This applies to all scholars of Islam from the time of the Prophet ﷺ to our time, whether they are Arabs, non-Arabs, those far away from us and those close to us, of any nationality and color of skin. We must know that their flesh is poisoned, which means that whoever speaks ill of them, he is eating their flesh, and he will meet a terrible end unless he repents. Also, we must not like those who speak ill of them. We must leave them and their gatherings and be only with those who truly love the scholars of Islam in word and deed. What are we to do when scholars have differences of opinion? For this we must have a high level of Islamic knowledge, high level of decency, and high level of manners. We must also know the reasons that lead scholars to have differences of opinion, and that it is inevitable, and that we must always think good of the ulama and give them excuses, not allowing ourselves to say bad things about them or to write bad things about them, because we believe that all of them try their utmost to arrive at the truth and follow it. If they were right, they will receive 2 rewards, and if not, they will receive 1, as it is clearly stated in an authentic hadith. So, dear friends, brothers and sisters, we must know the rights of the scholars. We must not fall into huge sins by thinking bad of them, because they are the leaders of Islam. They are the people according to whose fatwa, religious verdicts, people have their correct faith, belief. They pray, they fast, they do Hajj, they do Umrah, they pay Zakah, and without them, as one of the Salaf said, people would be like cattle, like animals. So we must know their rights. We must know that they lead us to Jannah, however hard it may seem to some, but those whose hearts are clean and they love Islam and Allah and the Prophet ﷺ and the Sunnah, they love truly the scholars of Islam. And Of course, someone may say there are some people who call themselves scholars and they are not, and for this we will have another video, inshallah, if Allah allows us to do that. But for now, I want to call myself and you to respect our scholars, forgive them their mistakes, and think good of them. And this is the least we can do to protect our hearts and minds and tongues from thinking or feeling bad towards them and saying bad towards them, defending them, trying to be with them if we can, in person, if not in spirit, and in their knowledge and their projects and their thoughts. And I ask Allah to forgive all of the scholars of Islam and reward them for us, those of them who are already dead and those who are alive, to keep them for us for as long as possible so that we can benefit from them. وجزاكم الله خيرا.